So the last time we spoke, I was talking to you about how I set up my system here to grow our produce in our continental warm climate. And I promised you that I would show you my composting system, which I will do in a second. It's a bit of a rainy day today, but we're still going to get out there and have a look around. And I'm also going to show you the beds that are 2 years old or a little bit older than that, and then the new bays that I've created this year. And you're going to see the difference between what happens when you use green waste compost and what you need to consider, and also the use that I have for my own homemade compost. So let's go and take a look at that, and then we'll come back and have a wander around the garden. Now, I can be accused of talking so much about compost, and I could be accused of being obsessed with it. But yeah, okay, maybe I am. But the thing is, it's an important part of our world here. We need it, and we need it for so many different reasons. So this is the green waste, and there's a video on the channel that talks to you about the pros and cons of using it. It's worth taking a look, and I'll link it in the description below. But the thing is, this is not the be-all and end-all. We don't grow everything in green waste compost. We make our own. That's what these pallets are for on the side here, and that's those pieces of wood as well. And we'll come on to that in just a second. But as you can see, we've had quite a bit of rain here today. Now, I've got this spade in the ground. What I want to do is show you how much water penetrates this green waste. So we go into there. Look how dry that is. Can you see how dry that is? That's pretty dry. That's pretty dry. You need quite a bit of water to penetrate deep down into a new no-dig bed. So we've had rain here now for the last 24 hours. It's been a total of about 10 millimetres. Doesn't sound a lot. 10 millimetres is a centimetre. But you can see there that it's not gone through. And that could be classed as a worry. But let's take a look at our homemade compost, and you can see the difference. So here's the familiar 3-bay system that we've got here. I'm using this middle bay here to start filling up again, and as you can see there, I've got all manner of things in there. Some vegetable peelings from the kitchen, got some grass cuttings, and I've got a relatively low temperature there of about 70 degrees Fahrenheit, but it was at 120 at one point the other day when I did put the grass in there. And my aim now is to get this filled as much as possible. But with compost, you're always looking for materials. And so one part of the year in the autumn or the fall, you're going to have lots of browns. And at this time of the year, you're going to have a lot of greens. And if we come across to here, as I mentioned the other day, I've got these areas of grass. That's an important addition to my compost. And this particular area here, not so much there, but this particular area here is a great resource for me to add into these bays. But what I've been doing is, as you can see from that last lot, I've been filling it with the green. Now I need some brown. So what I'm doing is I'm utilising this bay here. Now, I made this last year. Some of it is ready and some of it isn't. I want to use some of this on some of the beds. So I've been taking it out, popping it across into this trailer here to go up into the vegetable patch. But there are pieces there that haven't decomposed. Some people want to know when compost is ready to be used. And what I go on is, has it changed? Has it changed its structure? Do I recognise it since it went in? Well, I recognise this as a stalk of a brassica. And so, that to me hasn't decomposed fully. So I'm classing that as a brown. And it's the same with this straw. And so because of that, I can use it as a brown. I just started tipping that in there, and I've just realised that I don't want to bury the compost thermometer. So I do still have some brown materials that I can use. So again, I'm just going through this, forking it ever so lightly. The pitchfork as I've said so many times in the past, is a great tool to have in your garden. Not only for the compost, but also for other jobs that I'll show you as I use it during the year. But now I get to something like that, and that's okay. I'm never going to have compost that looks like it does when it comes out of a bag. I was going to say that looks as perfect as it does as it comes out of a bag, but the thing is, from what I'm reading, compost out of a bag at the minute isn't very good quality. So there you go, you see. But it's got a lot of moisture in that, and it's had the same amount of water as that green waste, but it holds it a lot better. Now, one of the reasons why it might hold it a lot better is because the surface area of the compost itself, there's a lot more bulk in this. See, I'm just pulling this down. Anything that I still recognise, I can just flip over into that other bay there for some brown materials, because when this rain goes and the heat returns, this grassed area is going to be growing, and I don't want to lose that valuable resource. So, as I say, I'm not bothered about how it looks. I'm only interested in the job that it does. So I'm not going to give myself any extra stress about it not looking right. It doesn't matter. It's got a job to do. It's got to maintain the moisture in the ground and feed my soil, which then feeds the plants. Let's go and have a look at the beds. Now, as we walk around the beds, you're going to see various projects I've got on at the moment, dodging the weather. So this frame here is for tomatoes, and that's going to be for a future video when they get transplanted out. But if we look closely, this surface is the result of the garden compost that I put on here this year. I did it in the late winter. There's a little bit of weed growth in there, but I'm not too worried about that because it's so easy to take out. What the plan is for this is this side here will be tomatoes, and it still gives me a space either side to put other things in. And I've got some bush varieties to go in as well, so I might just fill this whole area with tomatoes. Same with this one. But again, you can see the compost. Like I say, there's a bit of weed growth, and as I always mention, you're never going to get rid of weeds when you do your no dig. But as I'll show you in a second, it's very easy to control. Now, this particular bed here, again, here's some weeds. Let me just show you how easy. There's a thistle there. It is just to pull out. Same with a bit of bindweed. It's very easy because it's not compacted into solid ground. It's very quick. There's a bit of grass there, you see. There you go. It's very easy to take it out. I'm not taking out these guys. These are spinach. But again, if you look closely, you can see bits of straw from the garden compost that's gone in. I've also had a bit of mole action there. One of the pests that I have in the garden. And we've got some more transplants ready to go out, just to fill this space up. And we'll be picking the leaves of this spinach now for the next few weeks. So that's a great thing to be doing. I've got some other transplants to show you, again in an old bed. So let's go and have a look at those. So again, this is the 2-year-old bed. And like I say, if you look closely, you can see not only a top dressing of green waste compost that was 1-year-old. So it does look different to the stuff we saw at the beginning of the video. We've got some spring cabbages in here, and then beyond that, going up towards the end, we've got some kohlrabi. So this is a bed purely for brassicas and nothing else. Now, let's just have a look at this. Because I've got the compost below, if I push that to one side, you can see how much moisture is still retained in the ground. So by adding the garden compost as well as the green waste on the top, you hold much more moisture, and that's key. This is another 2-year-old bed, and in this particular case I've done some direct sowings. Now if we look carefully, you might be able to pick out this green line here, and that is celery. And very small plants, they take a long time to germinate, and in between that you can see all these little weed seedlings popping up. I tend to leave them to get a little bit taller first, so I know exactly where the line is, because they're very difficult to spot, as you've just seen there, and then I can do a proper weeding here. But again, weeding through this is very easy to do. I know that this is a weed, I don't know what it is, but you can't always get all the roots out. And as we move further up the bed, we're coming into the realms of the rainbow chard and the beetroots. These are the rainbow beetroots here, and then we've got the ordinary beetroots, bolt hardies, going along there. So they've germinated, and they're germinating okay. But again, it's an old bed. It's just had a top dressing this year, so I've not used as much compost to dress this as I did when I first built it. So that's another thing to bear in mind. Now we're coming into the new beds, and as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, there's the relocated polytunnel frame. We'll come to that in a second. Now in here I've put some beans, and I've done it for a number of reasons. I'm testing the ground. I want to get some nitrogen back into this area here because, like I say, it's relatively new. Now this has mainly had green waste. There has been a bit of garden compost. Let's just check the moisture levels. It's not as damp as the first one we've seen. It's still holding moisture, but it could be doing a lot better. And again, as you look through here, now I can see where the beans are. It will be easier for me to go through there and take out any of that bindweed that I can see. Broad beans are in this one. I went in a bit late, and I'm getting these volunteer potatoes that are suddenly appearing. There's nothing in this particular bed at the moment, which is why it hasn't been weeded. But again, just to show you, take that one there, give it a gentle pull, and there's all the roots. So, like I say, it is very easy to do. To weed this would take me 10 minutes. So it's not a huge amount of my time. Now we're coming into this area here, like I say, so this is the old polytunnel frame, and that is the green fencing that I used, balustrade. Total waste of time. Once you use it, you can't reuse it. It just tangles up in itself and it drives you absolutely bloody crazy. Well, it did me. So what I've done instead, I've relocated this, and then I've made the gaps between each one smaller by using some water pipe that I had left over from part of the renovations. And then what I'm doing is I'm wrapping it with chicken wire. Obviously it's not finished by any means, it's got to be a lot tighter than that, but that's the idea of it. Now I've been walking across this particular section of the bed, and you can probably make out my footprints, but it's not doing it any harm to do it. Obviously you don't want to do it too often, and you can see through here where I've been stood here securing the fence onto the frame. I need to just tidy it up a bit before I plant in, and I'm going to be putting beans in here to get them to grow over it. Then once the season finishes, we can lift this whole frame and then relocate it across to the next 2 bays. Now you might be looking at these bays and thinking to yourself, crikey, he's got a lot of weeds in there. Yeah, I have, but the thing is, like I say and shown you just now, it's very easy to pull them out, and I'd rather keep a plant of something. I don't look at weeds as being a weed. As we know, a lot of people say a weed is a plant that's in the wrong place. It's still a plant, and it's still interacting with the life in the soil. So for the moment, until I'm ready to put something in, obviously I'll keep it under control, don't want it going crazy, but when I'm ready to start transplanting into this, which is in the next few days, I'll weed it first, and then I'll be ready to go. So it's helping me, it's keeping the soil alive, they're feeding one another, because like I say, it's still a plant, and then I can just whip them out. Here's another example. Take that there, there's a piece of grass, pull it out by the roots, and often you find that as you do it with one, got one adjacent, comes out at the same time. So there we go. That's how easy it is to weed our no dig beds. Can you see this green line here? This is a bed full of carrots. So it's like I say, it's 2 years old. It's full of garden compost, top dressing of green waste, that's the 1 year old, and then sow my line of carrots in. Now I know where they're germinating. It'll be very easy now for me to pick out the individual weeds that I've got in there. And like I say, this is a 5-minute job to do. And if you do it regularly, it takes even less. I've got a lot of bays here, or beds. So potentially I've got a lot to look after. Remember, I do this on my own. But hopefully you can see how easy this is. I hope that's given you a bit of an understanding or clearer picture as to how our beds are performing here. I mentioned just now I've got some transplants to go in, and as we're looking down here, I've got some onions to go in now that are ready to go, which I'm going to use as green onions this year. These are the ones that I sowed from seed. Can't say I'm particularly impressed by it, but you know. And then I've got some other bits and pieces there, some rainbow chard. I've got some turnips for some reason. I just decided to sow from seed, like I did the swede. Swedes turned out better than I thought. I've also got some celeriacs there, a couple more spring cabbages that are getting a bit bigger. Night scented stocks for the front garden, and some lavender there as an experiment really. And then in here, I've got some dill, some basil and some cinnamon basil. Needs a bit of a drink. And then I've got, for the first time, in the middle there, I've got some sage that have germinated, some Florence fennel and some winter tarragon. So all these things will be ready to transplant out into those bays in the next few days when it warms up, which is due to do. So there you go. I hope you got something out of that, and it shows you the logic that I have for using this system of having our own compost and not digging the beds. The beauty of it is it saves you so much time. You've just seen there how easy it is to pull the weeds. And like I say, I mean, I'll go out there at least once a week and I can weed all of those bays or beds. I don't know why I keep calling them bays. Must be the rain. I can weed those beds quite quickly. I can collect the weeds that I'm pulling out of the ground. Now I can do a number of things with those. I can either put them into the compost heap and then continue the process, or I can use them to make our own liquid feeds, which I'll show you later on in the year. But for now, take care, and I'll catch you next time.